It's time for Come and Talk It with your host, Michael Cargill, brought to you by Texas Law Shield. Over the last decade, Michael has championed and supported the rights of law-abiding Texans to own and use firearms. He is the owner of Central Texas Gun Works, a veteran of the United States Army, and has achieved national exposure in such prestigious media outlets such as Forbes Magazine, Fox Business News, CNN Money, AOL, BBC World News, Huffington Post, and the New York Times. Cargill vigorously defends lawful gun ownership in this country without regard to party politics. And now, here's Michael Cargill.
Good day, Austin, Texas, the live music capital of the world. Let's praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. All right, so let's get into this because we have a lot to talk about. There are several shootings that happened this week around the country, and you're hearing calls from our elected officials, we need gun control. That video you just watched was a young man, teenager, Anthony Thompson, who was shot and killed in a restroom in a high school. And so you have your president and the vice president of this country. They're calling for gun control. Well, you know what? That was an officer-involved shooting that had nothing to do with gun control. There's nothing that a background check would have done to stop that shooting. And those are some of the things they want to kind of misdirect you about. All right, so Anthony Thompson, he was a teenager who took a gun into a high school. Ladies and gentlemen, you take a gun into a school, that is a felony. You're putting yourself in danger by doing that. That is a felony. And I can't get past that point. I don't care what happened after that. He took a gun into a school. Whatever he did after that, he got what he deserved. Wake up and smell the coffee. Do not let these elected officials fool you. If you're raising a child who's going to take a gun into a school, are you serious right now? I'm not even going to have that discussion with you. That's not up for debate. Let's move on. Let's go to Ohio. Let's talk about Ohio. And so here we are, another shooting in Ohio, officer-involved shooting. You have your elected officials around the country, your president, your vice president. They're calling for gun control. Even in the city of Austin has decided to come up with a resolution to demand that our elected officials at the Texas State Capitol come up with some type of gun control measures. Well, you know what? These shootings that they're referring to had nothing to do with regular people, law-abiding citizens owning firearms. These are officer-involved shootings, and they're calling for gun control. They're calling for universal background checks. It was the officer-involved shooting. They're calling for universal background checks when an individual who legally purchased a firearm, in a totally different situation, passed a background check. A universal background check law would not have stopped that shooting or stopped that person from getting their hands on a gun because they legally purchased it. These people, look here, black community, let me tell you, wake up and smell the coffee. You got to realize that these people are calling for gun control measures. They're calling for new laws. Any new laws that you put on the books are going to affect the black community. You know why? Because you are the one that are going to be the ones that get this interaction with law enforcement. The more laws you come up with, the more interactions you give the people in the black community. I'm telling you, you come up with no more laws, you're going to be affected by this. Wake up and smell the coffee. They don't care about you. If they cared about you, they would actually come up with, laws that change the use of force and deadly force rules. Those are some of the things you want to do. There's nothing that you can do by stopping some of these shootings that we're talking about by, these law enforcement officers. These shootings still would have happened because guess what? That young lady, Ma'Khia, I can't even say her last name. Bryant, there we go. Ma'Khia Bryant, that shooting was a justified shooting, people. This young lady called 911, Ma'Khia Bryant. She's a teenager because there are some adults that were outside her home that had knives and they were fighting. And so she called 911. She was a foster child. She was at home where she had a right to be, where she's supposed to be. These people were outside her home and they were fighting. It got to the point where she came outside of her home. Let me tell you something. This is why people are calling me and talking about, well, constitutional carry is going to pass. Permitless carry is going to pass, and I can carry my gun without a license. Well, you're an idiot. You know why? Because you need to take a class and learn what the use of force and deadly force laws are before you carry a gun or use a weapon, period. Because this young lady who was a teenager stepped outside of her home and with a knife to stab and get into a fight or confrontation with another person. I tell people in my class, when you're taking the class, when you pull the gun out and use it, that is a $20,000 bullet when you pull that gun out. You have a right to carry a gun, absolutely. You have a right to have it in your vehicle without a license, absolutely. You have a right to have a gun inside your home without a license, absolutely. But when you pull that gun out and use it, that is a $20,000 bullet. Why? Because you're going to go to jail. You're going to be fingerprinted, booked, spend 9 in jail, have to bail yourself out of jail. You have to hire an attorney. If you're in Travis County, Texas, Williamson County, Texas, they're going to make you get an ankle monitor. You have to pay for that service, and it's going to cost you $20,000 with attorney fees and all those other fees just to get to the grand jury phase. This young lady, let's go back. This young lady goes outside her home. The Castle Doctrine, please, people, listen to me. And you cannot get your legal advice, and I'm not an attorney, so you can't get legal advice from me, but I'm an instructor, and I'm going to tell you what the law says and what we tell people in the License to Carry Handgun course. You cannot step outside your home and engage someone. You should not step out your home and engage someone just because they're on your property. When it comes to someone on your property, you can use force. You cannot use deadly force to get them off your property. The only reason you would be able to use deadly force to get someone off your property, you can't. There you go. Unless they're attacking you. All right. So don't do it. You can use force. You cannot use deadly force. You can only use force if you've asked them to leave, they refuse to leave, it's criminal trespass, then you can use force. You cannot use deadly force. You cannot stab a person. You cannot shoot them. You're not justified in doing that under our laws. When it comes to the Castle Doctrine, if someone enters your home unlawfully, try to remove you from your home unlawfully, you can use force or deadly force to stop them. She should have stayed inside the house. If she was in her vehicle, someone tried to enter her vehicle, remove her while she's in her vehicle, she can use force, deadly force to stop them. Don't step outside your vehicle. This is what we explain to people in the License to Carry Handgun course. Stay in your car. Your car, you're protected under the law. Stay inside your house because you're protected under the law if you stay inside the home. You step outside the home, then the law is not going to protect you. It's not going to cover you. She calls 911. Police officer shows up to the scene. There are sirens. There are lights. The officer turns his siren off. He comes to a stop. His lights are still on. He gets out of the vehicle. He approaches the home. He gets to the home. There's someone outside because the 911 call went out. There are people outside with a knife, and they're fighting. He pulls out. He gets out his vehicle. He walks up to the scene, sees someone stabbing someone. He tells them to stop. If you don't have the common sense to stop when police arrive on the scene, this is what I explain to everyone, including my parents when they're involved in a use of force, deadly force situation. When my parents pulled out their gun and stopped that threat, I told my mother to pick up that gun, walk downstairs, put the gun on the table next to the door, and then open the door. Do not have a gun in your hand. When the police arrive at the scene, don't have a weapon, don't have a gun. When they say stop, they say stop because you do not know the information they've received on the call from the dispatcher to their computer to them, and they're responding to that call. You got to put the weapons down. When they arrive at the scene, this is not high school. This is not elementary school. This is not middle school. This is the life, people. And if you have a weapon, you have a gun, you will die. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Peace, this is Maj Toure. You're listening to Come and Talk It Radio with Michael Cargill.
I'm a U.S. Army veteran with a strong sense of duty and respect for our system of government. After 12 years, I was honorably discharged and decided I would fulfill the American dream of entrepreneurship and open up a gun shop in Austin, Texas. At my shop, I teach people to be law-abiding and how to safely use their firearm. On page 46, we're going to talk about Penal Code Section 46.02, The day that ban went into effect, I went into my local ATF in Austin and turned over my bump stock because I'm a law-abiding citizen. But I wasn't going down without a legal fight. So that's why I reached out to NCLA.
NCLA is representing Michael Cargill because federal agencies do not have the power to rewrite statutes. Bump stocks are not machine guns. If Congress wants to change the law and ban bump stocks, it certainly can do so. But we can't have the executive branch rewriting a statute and putting people in jail for up to 10 years.
It's a problem because, this government agency has said, you know what, something that is legal is now illegal, and we're going to confiscate it from you, and we're not going to compensate you for it, and you're going to become a criminal.
The goal of our case here is to tell the ATF that they can't get away with this kind of administrative lawmaking. This isn't constitutionally permissible, and this goes against everything that our nation was founded on.
The bump stock ban turned innocent law-abiding citizens into criminals overnight, even though they were compliant with the statute. And that's not right.
This case is not about where you stand on bump stocks. It's about the rule of law. It's about whether an agency can rewrite a statute and turn a law-abiding citizen into a criminal. If the ATF can ban bump stocks, any agency can ban anything.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, so I just took my blood pressure medicine and brought it down a couple notches there. All right, so my doctor called me up, sent me a text message, said, Michael, take your medicine. All right, so I took my medicine, bring that blood pressure down, and just checked it. I'm at a good level. I'm okay, doing fine, but I'm just upset because people that watch these videos, they have this interaction with law enforcement, and you have no idea how to interact. You got to learn how to interact with police. When there's a use of force in daily force situation, that's why I tell my family members, and I'm not going to take a call from anyone else when it comes to that. I take a call from my family. When they're involved in a situation where they pull a gun out, knife, whatever it is, that defend themselves, call the police first. Then I have them call me, and I make sure they do the right thing. And we call an attorney, and I really want them to talk to an attorney. And I want the attorney to speak to the police for my family. When you call the police to your house, I have a number one rule in my house. The number one rule is don't call the police. That's the number one rule. Amen. Don't call the police. So what do? I'm in a situation, I handle that situation. If I have to call law enforcement, I have to call paramedics, then when they do arrive on the scene, I make sure I'm not going to have a weapon in my hand because, well, you know what? I know that I called the police and they're arriving to the scene. When the police get there, they're going to focus on any weapon that they see. You got to realize that. I don't know what goes through people's heads. Why would you call the police in the first place? You know what's going to happen. Police show up, they see a weapon, they're going to engage and they're going to stop whatever's happening with that weapon. Get your head out of your three-point of contact. If you don't want police to respond, in the manner they're responding in this situation right here, then don't call them. Don't call them. Don't call them because you know what's going to happen. I want to change gears a little bit. I want to come back to this. Like I said, that Ma'Khia Bryant shooting was justified because she had a knife in her hand. She was stabbing another person. Police saw this, told them to stop. They did not stop. They shot her, justified. You heard the sirens. You saw the lights. Police were on the scene. You should have put the weapon down. If I was a civilian and I'm jogging, let's say I'm walking my dog in that neighborhood. I'm a civilian. I'm walking my dog in that neighborhood, and I saw this person stabbing another person. I would have shot her too. I would have blew her away. That's the fact. So let's not cover it up. Let's not pretend it's something else. Okay, you got to understand what the laws are. Got to understand use of force and deadly force. Let's talk about the homeless here in Austin, Texas. We have a serious problem here with the homeless. We have a serious problem because our city council, they're so busy focusing on so many other things. They're focusing on let's say, gun issues when they have no control, no power to affect gun issues. If you have no power to do anything about gun laws, then why are you discussing them? How about you? What a concept, Mayor Adler. How about what a concept, Councilmember Kassar. What about you focus on the things that you have the power to affect or the power to control? How about dealing with the homeless situation, the situation that you created? You put us in this mess. This is disgusting. It is nasty. This city is turned to such a nasty, dirty, crime-ridden city. Last night, there were 25 shootings in this city. 25. All surrounding with some type of homeless situation, some type of, it just all convoluted together. All because our city council has created this problem by removing the camping ban and allow anyone to just sit and lie wherever they want to lay. And it's turned into just nothing but crime, crime, crime. They sleep during the day and commit crimes at night. That is what's happening. There's no allegedly. That's exactly what's happening. I want to bring into the conversation Cleo, because we have on the ballot here in Travis County, Austin, Texas, to actually start the camping ban back up again. Is that correct?
Right, reinstate the camping ban.
Go ahead and explain that to people.
Hi, I'm Cleo Patricic. I'm the co-founder of Save Austin Now PAC. It was created after the disastrous policies that the city council implemented in June 2019. At that time, I started Safe Project, which was a group that was formed here in South Austin to deal with the shelter that they were trying to place here without any community outreach, community involvement, and they quickly disbanded that after so much the outpour from not only South Austin, but from every part of Austin. Everyone should take heed that whatever happened in Austin, in South Austin, is now trying to happen up. I just came through Candlewood Suites. I was there at the protest with Judge Gravel and McKenzie, councilperson McKenzie. The same scenario, no transparency. Placing shelters, encampments, campgrounds near children in schools is a non-starter for me, no matter where it is. Their children should be safe, and this shelter or encampments, they have not personally impacted me, but the fact that they are impacting communities, especially for me, communities, working class communities, communities of color, I have a huge problem with that because they're not popping up everywhere, and they're allowed to happen in places where our council persons and Kitchen and Pio Renteria have sold our neighborhoods out. They ignore our calls. They don't answer them anymore. They don't even bother to reply with a generic email anymore. They have basically given up. When we met with the mayor 2 years ago, we had specific things that we requested in regards to the encampments and the shelter. And everything that we predicted 2 years ago is exactly what's happened, but worse. I mean, the fires, daily basis, they've doubled. The crime rate is up. The violent crime rate is up. And I mean, everybody,
Drug use.
yeah, and everybody has their own horror story. And this is not like, oh my God, it just looks so ugly. No, it's the actual interactions that are constant because they're in common spaces now. They're in the trails. Everybody is impacted. I was surprised how many encampments are now in Northwest Austin, down 183 near Candlewood Suites. It's been an organized effort in the middle of the night that the city council and the Homes Not Handcuffs folks, and in fact, I'm surprised Chris Harris has never. I know you've invited him here.
On numerous occasions.
Yeah, and I just debated him a few days ago.
Those people are afraid to come onto this show.
Yeah,
because they know what they're doing is wrong.
Absolutely, and you're going toe to toe, and you can't pull out all these cards when they know all these excuses and all these isms are not going to work with you, Cargill. They're not. That's not going to fly. And they tried to do that with me, and he basically hung up at the end of the debate because he had nowhere to go. Because we both come from the same type of environment, and it is wrong to pit groups against each other when everybody should be putting the onus on the city council for failing to keep every part of Austin safe.
And you have people that are on both sides of the aisle here. You have Democrats and Republicans who are saying, "Hey, this is a problem in this city." Which it is.
Absolutely.
Because you're not a Republican.
No, absolutely not. I'm a big-time activist. I have voted for Adler, before this, but I'm telling you, you have definitely impacted Democrat vote in Austin. And in fact, I think it's woken up the moderates like myself that are saying, hey, this party is going too far to the left. There's a problem here, and we need cover because we cannot continue this. We cannot have a safe city that is walkable, that you can go to the grocery store and not be assaulted or someone aggressively panhandling you. When my husband's driving in his truck, the homeless are not impacting him. They're not knocking on his door. Homeless men know who to try to
That's right.
take advantage of, and
That's
it's women in cars or walking.
That's right.
And it's wrong because every woman I know has their own story.
That's right.
And if anything, we aren't going to let this continue because I will make sure, and all moms across Austin will make sure their children are safe.
That's right. It's women and kids that are affected, that are impacted by
Absolutely.
this. And Robert Morrill says Prop B is a full frontal assault on free speech. He says it also criminalizes falling asleep in public. And he says he voted against it. And Prop B, and by the way, he says it's going to fail. Well, you know what, Robert? Our call-in number is 512-643-5483. And that's anyone that has a comment, you got something to say, you're for it, you're against it. I want to hear your thoughts. If you're against this, then you call us up and you tell us we're wrong. You know, it's our telephone number is 512-643-5483. That's 512-643-5483.
We are not against homeless. I've housed homeless in my home, refugee families. I'm a longtime probation officer and I've worked in social services my entire adult life. This is not about that. In fact, we are hurting the homeless, having them in these unregulated, lawless encampments. We're going to be having soon, we're going to be putting out on blast a homeless lady who has been victimized in these encampments, she wants her story told. She wants to tell every council member that her life is no longer safe in these encampments. They have allowed this to continue. Crime flourishes. It not only in the encampments, but the surrounding communities. No one is safe from this. In fact, we all have had, a long history in Austin where we've interacted with homeless before. Now there's this criminal element that has come in and they're distracting from the need of the ones who want services, who want to be housed, when all we're dealing with are the people that are starting fires. This whole SWAT incident that happened at Central Market and Westgate, did you talk about it?
No.
Or you know about it?
Mm-hmm.
It happened I think it was on a Friday night.
We'll talk about it after the break.
Yeah.
All right, so we're talking with Cleo Patrick. She's talking to us about Prop B, Bravo, and we're saying vote yes. Vote yes on Prop B. That election is going on right now. Early voting started last week. It's going on right now as we speak. If you're going to HEB, you're going to the grocery store, there are voting locations all around this city. Go vote today. Vote yes on Prop B. And let's take care of our homeless situation.
It takes 5 minutes.
We're talking about Ma'Khia Bryant, that shooting, a teenager. We're talking about Peyton Ham. Did you hear about him? We're going to talk about that shooting. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Jack Jones here, and I get my gun news from Michael Cargill on Come and Talk It.
Whether it's a typical traffic stop or you're just involved in a use of force incident, encounters with law enforcement can be scary and stressful. In the heat of the moment, you may inadvertently say something you don't mean or make an inconsistent statement. These are red flags for officers, and if they think you're lying or your story doesn't add up, they might arrest you and let the criminal justice system decide your fate. Police officers are trained to get information from you without making the interaction seem like a formal interrogation. But remember, from the moment an officer arrives on scene, everything you say and everything you do will be scrutinized in court. The prosecuting attorney will attempt to use anything and everything against you. So what do you say? You say, I invoke my right to remain silent, and then let your attorney interact with law enforcement on your behalf. One important note though, do not throw common sense out the window. For example, if the intruder's hiding somewhere in your house when the police arrive, or if you saw the perpetrator pitch his weapon into your backyard, quickly tell the police and then stop talking. You might ask, what about my rights? What if the police never read me my Miranda rights? Miranda rights is the common name for a collection of rights contained in the Miranda warnings, given to suspects when they're placed under arrest. The warning comes from a 1966 Supreme Court case, Miranda v. Arizona. In that case, the court held that statements from a custodial interrogation would not be admissible unless proper procedural safeguards were in place to protect the defendant's Fifth Amendment rights. We've all seen these warnings on TV and movies. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to have an attorney. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, and so on. So do police have to read you your rights? No. It's important to note that officers are not required to read you these rights unless you're in custody and subjected to interrogation. If the police show up to a crime scene and start asking you general questions and you voluntarily tell them everything that happened, those statements can be used against you regardless of the Miranda warnings because you're not in custody. If you're put in handcuffs but you say something incriminating on your own without being questioned, those statements can and will be used against you because you're not being interrogated. You're just starting to spout off. This is why it's imperative that you know your rights and you shouldn't rely on the police to read them to you. Affirmatively invoke your rights. Say, I'm invoking my right to remain silent and my right to my attorney.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, we're talking about the homeless situation here in Austin, Texas. We're talking about these shootings that happen on the country. You know, people are all up in arms about these recent shootings. There's a shooting, Ma'Khia Bryant, that took place in Ohio, and people are upset. And they're, because it happened literally moments before the verdict came down of that police shooting of the young man that was killed he's from Houston, originally from Houston, of that court case. It happened the exact same day, and boom, Ma'Khia Bryant was, actually shot and killed a teenager. And so rightfully so, a teenager has lost her life. But we have to understand gun laws. We have to understand use of force and deadly force. We have to understand the force continuum. We have to understand the different rules that police officers have to follow, especially in their state. And also you need to understand the laws in your state where you are. And to talk more about that, because, a lot of people are asking about this permitless carry, which has not passed, by the way. Permitless carry, which means that, without a license, you're able to carry your handgun. And that has not passed. It only passed the House. It has to go through the Senate, and it has to be signed by the governor before it takes effect. And so people are all excited about this and think that this has already happened when it has not happened. But I want Edwin Walker at Texas U.S. Law Shield to come in and tell us a little bit about this permitless carry, because you got to know what the laws are before you carry a gun. Yes, you have a right to carry a gun right now in your car. You have a right to have a gun at home. Absolutely. Several places you can actually have a gun without a license. But when can you use the gun? Because once you pull that gun out and use it, it is a $20,000 bullet. And if you don't know what the use of force and deadly force laws are, you're going to go to jail. Either it will be court ordered for you to take a class, or you will lose your gun rights forever because you did not know what the laws were, including using a knife, using a stick, a club. You need to know what the laws are before you hit someone or use it. Because if you don't, you're going to jail, or when the police show up and they see you getting ready to stab someone, they're going to shoot you and be totally justified. Evan Walker, principal attorney with Texas U.S. Law Shield. Welcome to Come and Talk It, sir.
Well, thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Edwin, tell us about this permitless carry bill that we have before the Texas, going to the Texas Senate that's passed the Texas House.
Yeah, it is House Bill 1927. And so for those of you, those listeners that are interested in following legislation, whenever the session first started, there were about a half a dozen constitutional carry or permitless carry bills that were filed, and those have all been distilled down into one bill, 1927. It was the one that passed. It was the one that made it out of committee. There are actually two that made it out of committee. This was one of them. It was the one that received the debate on the floor. It was the one that was actually amended in a couple of places, and it was the one that was actually sent to the Senate. So all the other constitutional carry or permitless carry bills that people may have been thinking about or hearing about or following, you can disregard those. It's down to one bill, 1927, and it was sent to the Senate. And of course, some people, went and asked Dan Patrick. Dan Patrick said, very summarily said, well, we don't have the votes to pass it. And there's been a lot of pushback against that. The Senate has filed its own bill. I can't remember the exact number, Senate Bill 22 something.
Right.
But they filed their own version. And so the Senate does have two versions to consider. And so for those of you who are interested, go read both bills, compare them side by side. There are some differences, and some differences are more important than others.
Right.
But it will be interesting to see, obviously, what happens with the Senate, because the Senate procedurally has a lot of ways to stop it. And in fact, I heard a very interesting analysis this morning on one of my local news channels, where it said that Dan Patrick, that the Senate has already sent over to the House about 20 of bills that Dan Patrick held as a priority. And so he may be playing politics with this by saying, look, the sooner you take up my 20 Senate priority bills, the sooner this permitless carry bill may get a hearing. And so it's definitely now part of the political process, and whether it passes or does not get a hearing is going to be completely, the sort of the philosophical arguments aside. I don't think that those have much weight at this point. And the further it proceeds in the legislative process is all going to be the result of political horse trading.
Right. And it doesn't matter, because all these bills are different. The House bill is going to be different from the Senate bills, the two Senate bills that they brought forward, or slight. There's some differences in those bills. So, whatever differences, what comes out of the Senate, they're going to have to, if whatever gets approved in the Senate, it's going to have to they're going to have to get together in the House and have a conference committee, figure out which bill is going to go forward. Then it has to go back, it has to be approved. There's all this little process. There's a whole process to all this, and the clock is ticking. We're actually, next week is going to be May.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Once if a bill makes it out of the Senate, whether it's the Senate's original bill or whether it's 1927 making it back, if there is some change, which they deem to be a significant change, then it does have to be reconciled, and it has to be compromised, and then it has to be approved by both chambers once again, and then and only then it makes it to Governor Abbott. And as I've said on your show before, as you have said many times, Texas is the Texas legislative session. Once it ends, it ends, and once that bell rings, it's just like Cinderella at midnight. Your bill, if your bill hasn't made it out, it's going to turn back into a pumpkin.
That's right. And it's funny because a lot of people don't know what the different laws are. I was downtown Austin this past week, and I was talking to some door people, the door guys, the bouncers, and also some security officers, level 3 and level 2 security officers working on 6th Street. And these people here still today did not know the fact that, guess what? Their bars that they're tasked to protect, they're tasked to, provide security for, or to be the door guy, the bouncer for, their bars, you can actually carry a gun with a license in there. Here we are. This is 2021. And I would think everyone would know that. But you know what? Guess what? Our laws, there's so many different things about the Texas laws, and it takes a really long time. It takes us like 4 or 6 hours to explain this stuff in a classroom, to people. And, you're probably not going to remember half the stuff, but we try to beat it into your brain, and it's a lot of information. And here we are, 2021, and they're shocked by the fact that they changed their liquor license from a 51% liquor license during the pandemic. They changed it to a restaurant. And since they changed it to a restaurant, a person with a license can carry a gun inside and also can take any size knife inside. And they didn't have a clue. They didn't know that. And so I showed them, I had to pull up my phone, pull up their liquor license. I showed them their liquor license online, and informed them that the sign they were posting was the incorrect signage, and I can call TABC and report them, and they would get in trouble. And then also, you need to tell people either verbally that they can't bring a gun inside or post a 30.06 and 30.07 sign. They were totally shocked by this. So we had a nice little conversation, about this. And it like I said, even it's still today, 2021, people don't know this, Edwin.
Yeah, and one of the things about House Bill 1927, whether you philosophically agree with the concept of permitless carry of a handgun or you do not, one of the things that 1927 did do as a practical matter is it is an attempt to basically simplify the handgun laws and put them all in one or two sections. Of course, we have basically your general prohibition under 4602. You have your statutory excluded places for all firearms in 4603. You have your statutory prohibited places for handgun holders in 46035. But some of those places, handgun holders are allowed to carry if they're not given the private property 30-6 or 30-7 notice. Private property owners have the ability to exclude weapons, all types of weapons, under 30.05. But if it's specifically a handgun they want to exclude, they have to carry a handgun carried by a license holder. They have to do it under 30-6 for concealed carriers, 30-7 for folks who want to openly carry their handgun. And so there is a lot out there, but it can be that knowledge can be acquired, obviously, by taking a class from you. They can acquire that knowledge by buying the Texas Law Shield Armed and Educated book and reading it,
which is a gun law Bible. Let me tell you.
So the ability to learn these gun laws, they are out there. And the thing about it is, what is unique about the gun laws is that it's basically the majority of the gun laws themselves are all possession laws. Obviously, if you use a gun to commit a crime, then you should already know that whatever you're doing with the gun that threatens or harms another person is a criminal act, whether it's attempted murder, aggravated sexual assault, aggravated robbery. If you're doing a crime with a gun, you know that's a crime. And so the weapons laws, when we talk about weapons laws, we are talking generally about the laws about what weapons you can possess, where you can possess them, under what circumstances you can actually display them. And then, of course, what those go hand in hand with the self-defense laws, which are outlined in Chapter 9 of the Texas Penal Code, which everybody, regardless of whether or not you are carrying a firearm, if you're attacked at the gas station and you're one of those folks that either doesn't have a license or says, I don't believe in carrying a handgun, but you just happen to reach into your car and pull out a screwdriver or a crowbar or something else to defend yourself, you're still going to need to know, because in that type of circumstance, those would be considered deadly weapons. And so you need to know, like I said, even if you don't carry a gun, you need to know what the self-defense laws are in order to make sure that you're lawful in their use, make sure that you know under what circumstances you can use those, and try to figure out where that line is, because sometimes it is a bright line. And that's one of the great things about Texas self-defense laws, is it does give us a bright line to say, this is whenever you can be given a presumption of reasonableness to use force or deadly force. But then there are areas of nuance and areas of gray where you are going to need that knowledge before you get in trouble. You will not have time to learn it after you get in trouble, because at that point the die is cast and your fate will be left to the justice system.
All right, man, I tell you what, thank you, Edwin Walker, the principal attorney with Texas and U.S. Law Shield. That Texas gun law book from Texas Law Shield is a great book. That's the Texas Bible. You got to get that book because it tells you everything you need to know. It talks about purchasing guns. It talks about shipping guns, what type of service you can use to ship your gun and how to go about it. So definitely get that information and get yourself Texas U.S. Law Shield. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
This is Coleon Noir, and you're listening to Come and Talk It with Michael Cargill.
Hello, my name is Edwin Walker. I'm an independent program attorney with Texas Law Shield. I want to talk to you today about an issue that we see on a daily basis. In fact, you yourself will encounter it on a daily basis, and that is the subject of road rage. I am sure that you have all seen road rage. You may have actually been involved in a road rage incident. Now, if you're a responsible gun owner, I'm going to give you a few words of advice on how to react when you find yourself in one of these unfortunate road rage incidents. While on the roadways, We all observe something that makes us upset, whether it's poor driving, unsafe driving, or just simply somebody being very discourteous. By all means, you should restrain yourself from engaging that person and telling them how bad their actions were, because this can be perceived as an act of road rage. If you're a lawful gun owner, you have a firearm in your vehicle, you do not want to be viewed as the aggressor in a road rage situation. Now, with regard to a situation where an individual has chosen to rage against you, and you are the actual victim of the road rage, if you and the other individuals are still in their automobiles, do not use your firearm to respond to any of the rager's activities. This is because law enforcement views the fact that you're both still safely in your metal boxes as removing any threat of immediacy that you may be harmed. So please, if you have a gun, somebody is raging against you, forget you have a gun. Don't display it, don't brandish it, don't show it, don't point it, and for God's sake, don't fire it. This could result in a lot of trouble for you. Now let's look at a situation where a road rage incident has escalated. It has escalated to the point where one of the participants has actually gotten out of their vehicle. We recommend that you stay in your vehicle at all times. Do not exit your vehicle, because the person who exits their vehicle is going to be looked at as the aggressor. If the other individual has exited their vehicle and they are not in contact with your vehicle and they do not have a weapon, then do not feel that you can display your weapon in an act of self-defense. People are allowed to just simply stand there and scream at you, scream whatever they want. Until they make a demonstrative effort to try to harm you, there is no immediate threat that would justify displaying or shooting or brandishing your firearm. Now, in the event that the person shows their own weapon, in particular a firearm, the existence of their weapon would give you reasonable belief that there was an immediate threat of harm that would justify an act of force or deadly force. Even in this situation,
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, so we're talking about this Proposition B with the Austin, Texas. Just so you know, if you listen somewhere, you listen outside of Texas here, Texas has a huge homeless situation where before we had prior to 2019 or in the year...
About 1,200 homeless estimated.
So back then it was like 1,200 homeless people.
And now
we had a law in effect that you couldn't camp, you couldn't sit and lie on the sidewalk and things of that nature.
Right.
So then the city council repealed that and allowed people to sit and lie anywhere in the city.
Right.
And so now we're looking at 80% criminal trespasses up, 700% public intoxication, 120% violent disturbances, 60% emotional disturbed persons, 300% gun incidents, 33% overall increase on all crimes.
Right. And this was predicted. And no safeguards from the mayor, even though we met with him to keep communities safe. The communities that are most impacted are communities of color, working class communities that are just trying to make it, just trying to feed their families, have a playground to play. And now they're all, and the mayor even promised me, hey, the parks, commons places will be fine. You'll be fine 2 years ago. Lies. You know, he has ensured no one's safety. I'm thankful for the young lady that we're meeting with tomorrow, the homeless lady that is begging the council for the camping ban. She fears for her life, is unsafe. Right now, women are sex trafficked, and the crime is allowed to happen without any type of regulation. That's the part that this whole criminalization and this buzzword, you know, I'm a Democrat, and I appreciate, you know, police brutality, over-policing, profile. I appreciate all that. I'm a former probation officer. I didn't choose law enforcement. I chose probation and working within the community environment to try to restore safety, protect the communities, but also try to rehabilitate people. However, when you have places that crimes are flourishing and you're placing them immediately next to children in schools where registered sex offenders, you're expecting me to have to these encampments to be a best case scenario, that they're all going to behave and everything's going to be okay. No, as a mom, I'm always going to be looking at the worst case scenario for my children. And it's not happening in my community, but if it's happening in any community, every person, regardless of party, regardless of socioeconomic background, should care that these communities are unsafe. Travis Country Circle, Circle C, all these upper middle class neighborhoods, they don't have encampments. So they can say, oh, accept them, they're your neighbors, you know, these are they deserve to be wherever. That's not true, because you live with it for 24/7 and see what is happening at 2 a.m. Someone defecating or on your yard, you know, trying to break in. And if you're a woman or you're a single mom and you're trying to protect your child, who is keeping you safe? Because if the crimes are allowed to flourish, because of this, the mayor, every Stop the Sweeps, whoever, everyone needs to put their direction and the attention to the city council. They have failed the homeless. Just because
I think I agree with you there. They did fail. They had a lot of time to act on
absolutely.
it. Absolutely. But I think criminalizing them more.
You want to say your name or who you are?
My name is Taylor.
Taylor, what's up, Taylor?
Hey, how you doing, Cargill? So I think Prop B will only result in more criminalization. It's only going to result in way more desperation for people who are homeless, because they're going to not be able to keep their stuff safe. People are going to take their stuff away. You're going to take the camps away. One of the biggest problems with homelessness is the people lose their identification, so it's hard for them to get a job. They don't have a permanent address. And these camps allow them to have that, and they have a place where they can keep their stuff.
There's an address on Ben White?
Oh, yeah, they use the intersections.
As an address, and they
Yes.
can receive mail there?
No, they can't receive mail there, unfortunately. You're correct on that.
All right.
But it's a place for them to keep their belongings so they don't lose their identification, which is something that keeps, like, getting your birth certificate and IDs can sometimes take a long time.
I appreciate that. It's honorable what you're doing. You know, you're trying to speak up for those who really don't have a voice. They're not able to get in here and speak for themselves. I appreciate that.
I know it's hard to look at poverty too, especially because it's sad and it is dangerous too. Even 2 nights ago at the Arch, someone actually drove by the Arch and did a drive-by and shot into the people who were
Absolutely.
there.
I believe
I think there's a lot of anger directed
there are
at them
terrible
too.
people that are setting fires, that are people who have homes that are setting fire to tents. I know that
Really?
is happening.
Didn't see any direct correlation with that, but
I have. I've seen that a couple years ago that did happen.
Okay.
They threw something at one of them. However,
It's very unfortunate.
Overwhelmingly, the homeless individuals are not being helped in these unregulated encampments. 2 years ago, I begged the mayor before he went on vacation, please find safe campgrounds, water, toilets, a place for them to be able to store and lock away their things, a place where service providers can find them. He refused. He said, if we do that, then they'll never leave a city campground. The state, and hold on a second, everyone wants to say Prop B, it won't put anything, it won't help. You don't need a law or a proposition to find safe campgrounds. The state did it, and I didn't vote for the governor. I've never voted for a Republican. We can do better. Everyone says we're so sensitive, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, let's use it for correct. Let's put the attention at the city council instead of fighting us who are wanting the campgrounds that are safe. This is impacting children. One day, I hope that when you have children, like my child is safe. He's never been.
It impacts a lot of things, including industries as well, because people are afraid to go, especially to 6th Street. People are afraid to go there.
Yes.
But like, I think criminalizing them like this and fining them constantly isn't going to be able to help these people improve their lives. It's going to keep them into the prison
system. It's not criminalizing homelessness.
But that's the question that I put to you, right?
Yeah.
That's a fair question. So what's your strategy? So say we pass Prop B and camping's illegal, right? So the APD go on like a rampage, arresting every homeless person they can find in the city.
Okay,
what's like step B? Like,
I got you.
Let's
I got
play
you.
Your
Yes, I got you.
So what do we do?
So first of all, homeless deserve dignity. They deserve a quality of life. I absolutely believe. Not everybody might not believe that, but if you are around me and you talk, hold on a second. I'm going to answer your question. That's number one. Okay, I've housed them in my home. I want better for them. However, this is not the solution of having regulated encampments. Number two, let's don't even ask me because I'm not even an expert. Let's ask the actual experts across the city. Haven for Hope in San Antonio, which we visited. We visited Skid Row. We visited Housing First Strategy in Houston. They all have camping bans, and they all are begging the state to continue the camping bans. They say they work. They compel people to seek services, to seek shelter. Letting them live in lawlessness, in filth and squalor is not the answer. They will tell you that the experts that have been doing this longer than you were born, they will tell you that, which is true. I mean, these people have been doing it 25, 30 years.
It's slightly patronizing to say that statement.
No, but
it's
the
true
truth.
because you're a little baby. You don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, like,
okay, I wish I. Well, let me tell you.
Comments about age. I mean,
no,
like,
well, listen. I wish I was in my 30s. I'm 44, so I wish I could say me too, longer than I've been born. But what I'm saying is, if you listen to the people that are the foots on the ground, the professionals, they will tell you. They will ask them. If there's an encampment and they're allowed to happen, they're like, why am I going to go to your shelter? Like, I get everything I want here and I can do drugs. And then the problem with the Housing First strategy, which is the strategy that's saying, hey, no rules, we're going to give you a house, do what you want with it. As you see in that fact sheet that you just read, the crime increases. So, and in California and New York, they are stopping these Housing First. They're putting a pause on them because the crime has exploded. We need to find solutions, and everybody needs to be invested in this. If we all did our part, the homeless situation would be, but we also have to see that the homeless have a responsibility too. We want to call them their neighbors, then they have to abide by rules. They have to keep their environment safe. They have to make sure that they're not using drugs on playgrounds. These playgrounds that are majority Hispanic, 80% majority Hispanic, three predominantly around, not here, but over there by the 290 encampments that were first started. Now they're every part of Austin. But these are majority Hispanics that are dealing with predominantly high crime compared to West Austin or Northwest Austin, South Austin. It is wrong. And why are we not putting the attention on the city council for failing to protect these schools and these children? Why are we allowing that? We're sick of it, and having a camping ban will ensure that the city council finds safe places for them. They deserve to be protected. Women deserve to not be sex trafficked. Neighborhoods deserve not for children to see women being sex trafficked using drugs in public.
So you're saying, in a sense, this Proposition B, voting yes on it, would be kind of forcing city council's hand to do something?
To make decisions. It will be resoundingly clear that the city council needs to do better. And the reason they're not doing it, and this is what breaks my heart. This is what breaks my heart for real, because I grew up, my best friend was shot in the back by her friend in South Dallas. My best friend's mom was a prostitute. I grew up in the hood. Okay, what hurts me the most is that these neighborhoods that are being most impacted, everyone is okay with that. None of the Democrats, none of my friends, none of the people that we've, voter register drives, all of them, where are they? Why aren't they calling the city council that we put into power and saying, why are you not keeping these communities safe of color? Why? Because it's not happening in their communities. They can be Democrats in Travis Country Circle and Circle C and all these other places and say, hey, we need to help the homeless. But what about these communities? Why aren't you picking up the phone? Why aren't you coming and petitioning with me?
All right, so we're talking about the homeless situation. We're talking about Prop B. We're talking about voting yes or voting no on Prop B. I say vote yes. It is nothing like driving down on I-35, going by I-35 and 51st Street and seeing all that stolen property that's on the access road. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Peace, this is Maj Toure. You're listening to Come and Talk It Radio with Michael Cargill. I'm a U.S. Army veteran with a strong sense of duty and respect for our system of government.
after 12 years, I was only discharged and decided I would fulfill the American dream of entrepreneurship and open up a gun shop in Austin, Texas. At my shop, I teach people to be law-abiding and how to safely use their firearm. On page 46, we're going to talk about Penal Code Section 46.02. The day that ban went into effect, I went into my local ATF in Austin and turned over my bump stock because I'm a law-abiding citizen. But I wasn't going down without a legal fight. So that's why I reached out to NCLA.
NCLA is representing Michael Cargill because federal agencies do not have the power to rewrite statutes. Bump stocks are not machine guns. If Congress wants to change the law and ban bump stocks, it certainly can do so. But we can't have the executive branch rewriting a statute and putting people in jail for up to 10 years.
It's a problem because, this government agency has said, you know what, something that is legal is now illegal, and we're going to confiscate it from you, and we're not going to compensate you for it, and you're going to become a criminal.
The goal of our case here is to tell the ATF that they can't get away with this kind of administrative lawmaking. This isn't constitutionally permissible, and this goes against everything that our nation was founded on.
The bump stock ban turned innocent law-abiding citizens into criminals overnight, even though they were compliant with the statute. And that's not right.
This case is not about where you stand on bump stocks. It's about the rule of law. It's about whether an agency can rewrite a statute and turn a law-abiding citizen into a criminal. If the ATF can ban bump stocks, any agency can ban anything.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, so we're back and we're talking about shootings around the country. We're talking about the city of Austin, Texas. We're talking about this homeless problem that we're having. Talking about the fact that, you can drive down I-35, you take a look to your right there, you're going north, and you'll see all this stolen property, whole bunch of it, right in the intersection, right by I-35 and 51st Street. You got to check that out. You'll probably see some of your stolen goods there. That's right. Go by and take a look. I bet you your bicycles, your lawnmowers, your stoves, your grills. You'll be surprised the kind of stuff that you'll find. All your little stolen property, your kids' toys. Yeah, it's right there. I-35 and 51st Street. Check it out for yourself. All right, so man, we got a lot of comments here. Robert Morrow is saying, all kinds of stuff. Robert, you need to call into the show because Robert says Prop B makes it illegal to ask people for money or a thing of value after a certain or in certain public places, and how in holy did he? I'm not going to say that. Is that constitutional? So, Robert, call us, and if you call us, you cannot curse, okay? Or no, the world would not hear you if you do.
It's a safety issue. After 7 p.m., panhandling, aggressive panhandling. We do not want, as women, to be talked to aggressively, treated after hours. It's not safe during the day. First of all, for me, to walk around and it's no longer safe, basically, as a woman to walk around Austin. And if you have someone panhandling, possibly on drugs, possibly intoxicated, all these things that I'm supposed to predict. Okay, best case scenario, this person is just somebody down on their luck that needs food, that needs money for food. But that's not how we women think. I don't care who you are, homeless or not, do not come up to me after 7 p.m. at nighttime if I'm by myself or with my child.
Do you carry a gun, by the way? Can I just ask, do you carry a gun? Do you have a license to carry?
I do have a license to carry.
Do you carry a firearm?
No.
Okay, cool. Interesting.
And see, what I don't like is I don't like the fact that if I don't cut my grass, I can get a ticket. I don't like the fact if I don't remove my trash can from the road, I'll get, code enforcement will show up. I like the fact that, if I, leave something in my driveway, camper or RV or something like that, I'll get this notice or something, either from a homeowner association or, some other entity. I don't like, things of that nature. But you know what? Those are, where I live, those are things that I have to follow, the rules I have to follow. We have rules in my community. We have laws that I have to follow. And why do we allow for the homeless people to just skirt through these laws? You can just dump trash anywhere, and then I have to pay for that. My tax dollars are paying for that. I'm paying a lot of taxes, and I have to send someone from the city and the state, if it's a highway, to collect all that trash every week.
Yeah, and you're forgetting about the working middle class, the ones that are working 2 jobs to afford to live in Austin, and then also being taxed. And you're telling them, okay, we are going to support a homeless individual and not ask them questions about how, and just give them a house. And I can't even afford to live here. Teachers can't afford to live here. It is wrong. And then it's not even safe or clean. Like, where everyone has their hands there, like, how is this helping us?
I'm saying grow up, be an adult, and be a productive member of society. If you're not a productive member of society, then get out. That's what I say. What do you say? You're laughing. Go ahead. Let's bring it.
I mean, you're talking to the guy who was literally homeless for like 2 weeks.
I don't care.
Month, so
we not solve their problem.
Yes. You're here.
Thank you.
Your hair looks clean, so you look like you're all good.
No, I got a job and all that stuff. But I mean, I must admit, like, I was sleeping in Barton Creek Park, right?
Oh my
by the big monkey tree, where they do the drum circle.
Right.
And like, to be on it, I deliberately went there because I used to live on East Cesar Chavez, right by the big cup. Like, I used to actually have a house out there.
Right.
And then when I lost that, I went over to this park, and it was actually kind of nice there because there was a couple of guys.
Did you lose it because you lost your job, or what?
Yeah,
happened?
I was unemployed. I've been unemployed for like 6 months. But like, when I was over at this park in Barton Creek, there was like 4 or 5 other like RVs and shit out there and stuff out there. And there's RVs out there.
Correct.
And yeah, like it wasn't too bad in the sense that like everyone was kind of collecting their trash, and also we had like cars, right? So we had like vehicles, and people had like electricity and solar panels and all this kind of stuff. So it was very different. But I mean, I've met a lot of the homeless people on East Cesar Chavez because I lived like the same block as them, right? So like, I didn't really have any major issues with them when they were living there. Like they all like cracked out, but do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't have any problem with them.
But we figured out there's an issue, and that issue was resolved. It gets resolved because you know what? You have drive.
That's right.
You have determination.
Well, no,
you say, you know what? I don't want to be in this situation, so I'm going to do something to change the situation. The problem that we have is that people don't care. They're going to sit in this swaller and stay that way if we allow them to stay that way. They're not going to change it for themselves.
Okay.
They're not going to say, you know what? I don't want to live like this. I need to do better for myself.
So on a philosophical level, on a philosophical level, then, what justification do you have to dictate how other people live their lives and the quality of life that they live?
Because I have to pay for that mess that they're making and get cleaned up, and they're actually still in my property and causing damage to my property, and I have a problem with that.
Yeah, we should come and join my side and be an anarchist then, shouldn't you? Stop paying taxes. I mean,
no, we're going to kick them out of this city, and we're going to make sure we have a camping ban.
So you're mad
and
they're taking your money to...
I'm mad because they're damaging my city, they're destroying my property, they're defecating on my property, they're burning my property, they're graffitiing my property, they're breaking into my property. I have big problems with it.
But then that's your property. That's public property.
No, it's mine because I lease it. I lease. I pay taxes. I pay a lot of taxes.
I'm sure you do. But I'm saying, like, your property is the land that you own. You have a deed to your house. That's your property. Outside of that is none of your concern.
The business?
Yeah, no, that's also your property.
And that's what I'm talking about. So everything I'm complaining about is either the business or the house.
No one can get near the business.
Hey, it is what it is. It is what it is. All right, but let's bring to the conversation Kevin Lutlow. Kevin, you're on with Come and Talk It. What's going on, Kevin?
What's up?
What's up, Michael? Been a long time.
Yes, sir, my friend. I haven't talked to you in like forever. It's been like, I think it was 2014.
14, maybe a little bit of 15 and 16 too. But yeah, it's been a while. How are you?
I'm doing great. So, man, Kevin, you got this video out there that you will tell us about this video because you started, when it was beautiful. It was a nice area. nice part of, I guess, Austin or whatever it was. But, tell people what it was and what this video is all about. And we're also going to play it in the background.
Okay, yeah, so I've been listening to the last, 20 minutes or so of the show, and you guys are talking about 51st Street and 35. So I live right over there in Windsor Park, and that's where most of the videos that I've filmed have come from. There's one in particular that I think you're talking about. It's been circulated pretty heavily, and when I first started noticing the camp setting up, I just started filming it, and then about 7 months later, I realized that, hey, I've actually got an entire story of how this whole thing came to pass over many, many months. So we could kind of see the formation of it from nothing to something to, the nightmare that it became. And then that's kind of the story that I told. And it has been a huge problem for us, or it was anyways. We've actually very recently gotten that addressed, and we can get into that if you want. But for about 16, 17 months, it was a nightmare. And all of the things that you're describing, they certainly were occurring. So most of us invested heavily into just trying to protect our houses, with new fencing, lighting, security systems, things like that. We spent a fortune on it, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, so it's been a mess. I understand the situation that people are talking about. I do have a slightly different view of it, I think, than what a lot of your listeners probably have.
And I'm curious of your view too.
Yeah, so this is, over the time, I've been involved in local politics for a long time, and so
a very long time, because you've run for state representative.
For state rep 3 separate times. I've also worked in a number of city organizations over the years, nonprofits, things of that nature. Always, voluntarily or appointed or elected or what have you. But so yeah, I've been working in these groups for a long time, and so that's kind of afforded me the ability to kind of seek out some of these groups in the last year and a half and work with them and, have them speak with me directly about these issues. So I would say a combination of working with neighborhood associations, a variety of homeless nonprofits, the city of Austin, various departments within it, and then APD also. And, it took me quite a while to kind of put together what was going on because of the situation that was behind my house. It started with the city, worked with the neighborhood association, started working with homeless groups. We actually raised a bunch of money to get a bunch of the people back there into a better situation. Most, I would say, of the homeless back there actually worked really well with us. They were really kind and accommodating. The problem is that we had a small group of them, and this has been kind of my talking point over the last several months now. We had a small group of them that no matter what was going to happen, they were going to victimize other people. It was just plain as day. All of the things that you're talking about, us, people defecating in our yards, burglarizing our houses, almost daily. It's not even hyperbole. Almost every single day a house was robbed. And it was always the same two people doing it or within their little group. They were always the ringleaders of it. And so eventually what I was able to put together, and it took me a lot of kind of crawling through departments to figure this out. A lot of what's happening is because the county, not the city, but the county has actually prevented APD from being able to arrest people. And if you're not familiar with this, I would encourage you to talk to somebody who knows about it. You'll have to cut through a little tape to get there. But the county's got a policy, what they refer to as defining actionable versus non-actionable offenses. And a non-actionable offense is basically, it's a little bit more involved in this, but it's basically a non-violent misdemeanor. And as I understand it, APD effectively even has to be present for a violent type of misdemeanor, or they're not going to go after it. So some basic assaults or what have you.
Oh, yeah, Kevin, hold on just 1 second, because I want you to come back to that when we come back from the break, because you're absolutely right. In this town, we had a break-in attempt into the gun store in June of 2020. Break-in attempt. 8 people in 5 vehicles tried to ram our front door of a gun store. They shot rounds through the door of the gun store, shot the lock off the door, jammed the lock up with bullets. And do you know that no detective, no one investigated that attempted break-in into the gun store? So if you think that they care about you and what's going on with your Amazon package, someone stealing your breaking into your car, let me tell you, they're not investigating when 8 people tried to break into a gun store, people. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
This is Brittany Glaze, and I get my global gun news from Michael Cargill on Come and Talk It.
Whether it's a typical traffic stop or you're just involved in a use of force incident, Encounters with law enforcement can be scary and stressful. In the heat of the moment, you may inadvertently say something you don't mean, or make an inconsistent statement. These are red flags for officers, and if they think you're lying or your story doesn't add up, they might arrest you and let the criminal justice system decide your fate. Police officers are trained to get information from you without making the interaction seem like a formal interrogation. But remember, from the moment an officer arrives on scene, everything you say and everything you do will be scrutinized in court. The prosecuting attorney will attempt to use anything and everything against you. So what do you say? You say, I invoke my right to remain silent, and then let your attorney interact with law enforcement on your behalf. One important note though, do not throw common sense out the window. For example, if the intruder's hiding somewhere in your house when the police arrive, or if you saw the perpetrator pitch his weapon into your backyard, quickly tell the police and then stop talking. You might ask, what about my rights? What if the police never read me my Miranda rights? Miranda rights is the common name for a collection of rights contained in the Miranda warnings, given to suspects when they're placed under arrest. The warning comes from a 1966 Supreme Court case, Miranda v. Arizona. In that case, the court held that statements from a custodial interrogation would not be admissible unless proper procedural safeguards were in place to protect the defendant's Fifth Amendment rights. We've all seen these warnings on TV and movies. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to have an attorney. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, and so on. So do police have to read you your rights? No. It's important to note that officers are not required to read you these rights unless you're in custody and subjected to interrogation. If the police show up to a crime scene and start asking you general questions and you voluntarily tell them everything that happened, those statements can be used against you regardless of the Miranda warnings because you're not in custody. If you're put in handcuffs but you say something incriminating on your own without being questioned, those statements can and will be used against you because you're not being interrogated. You're just starting to spout off. This is why it's imperative that you know your rights and you shouldn't rely on the police to read them to you. Affirmatively invoke your rights. Say, I'm invoking my right to remain silent and my right to my attorney. Once you do that, the police legally shouldn't continue questioning you without your attorney present. But remember, there's a second part to this equation. After invoking your rights, you must exercise those rights. That means you have to keep your mouth closed. Protect yourself. Don't let the legal system take advantage of you after an incident. And Law Shield members, if you've been involved in a self-defense incident, remember to call the emergency hotline and speak with your independent program attorney.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
And this is not an echo chamber. We all have different perspectives here. We're talking about the homeless situation, talking about shootings. And when it comes to the homeless, I'm like, get rid of them. Kick them out of the city. Just burn them all. And then we have someone in here saying, no. Let's let the city council do what they have to see. That's Cleo. She has a heart. And then we have, Taylor over here. Taylor saying, no. They can be homeless. Let them be homeless. Then you have this one over here on my left, my son over here, saying, no.
Just don't
burn the government down. That's his perspective. So we have a lot of different perspectives here. This is not an echo chamber whatsoever. But I'm definitely in support of Prop B. Doing something about the homeless and forcing the city to do their job. Go ahead, Taylor.
All right, so I want to talk a little about the human tragedy that comes from forcing people to not be able to camp. It forces them kind of into the woods more. It forces them away from the city, which has the services, and we don't always have the shelters or enough places to put people. And I know you're sometimes a little bit against housing people because you said it raises criminality a little bit. But even when we can't house all the people, so we're going to force these people back into the woods, living into like tunnels under like Barton Springs. And I have a friend Alvin whose girl Susie drowned in a flood because they were forced to live in a tunnel under Barton Springs because every time they would sleep outside, they get ticketed by the police, and the fines just kept racking up. And they both had jobs, but they couldn't afford to buy anything.
Where are they from originally?
Where they from originally? Unsure. I don't know.
I bet you're not from Austin.
I think that's kind of a common misconception that a lot of people who are homeless aren't from Austin. Last time we checked, since they haven't done a count recently, done all the statistics, but I'm talking about maybe like last time they did it, I think that was in early 2020. They said only about 17% of people were from out of town who were homeless.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, my comment was just, talk about human tragedy. There's tragedy, human tragedy all over, and societies make choices. And one of the commenters said, "What right do you have to talk about how people should live? If it's public property, it's none of your concern." But in reality, public property is the concern of the society. That's what it means to be public property. And societies make choices. That's why you can vote. That's why you can have elections and vote for people who have different opinions about what is going to be allowed and what isn't. And that's really all this comes down to. What sort of society shall we be? And are we going to, obsess over the human tragedy that, one group experiences and ignore the tragedy of, little kids, women being terrorized, on and on and on. So at the end of the day, it's not a contest of who can trump up the biggest tragedy. It's really a question of what sort of society are we going to create here. We will never house everyone who's homeless. And in fact, there are those who don't choose to be housed, not in the traditional sense. And that's fine. There's no argument. Let them do as they please. But there also have to be standards of behavior that mean that the people around them in the society are respected. It just comes down to that for me. It's just that simple. What society do you want to live in? What society do you want to raise your kids in? And go vote that way.
Kevin Letlow.
Yeah, that's a totally fair point. I think the question, though, look, I understand that most people listening are probably very pro Prop B. I don't know what the right answer is. I don't think Prop B is going to do anything, is the bottom line. I think that the situation, the law or the ordinance, whatever you want to call it, that the county has passed has largely been the problem here. It's still illegal to defecate in public. It's still illegal to rob somebody at their vehicle when you're panhandling or whatever else. For God's sakes, APD headquarters is across the street from one of the biggest camps. Why don't we have APD patrolling the camp 24/7? You're telling me we can't take 3 police officers and have them walk a beat there if we know that it's that dangerous?
You can't even park your car in the Austin Police Department parking lot and go fill out a police report.
Yeah, I understand, and this is what I'm saying. So I understand what the anger is, and the city deserves huge brunt of the population's ire for what's gone on. They obviously didn't have any type of follow-up plan. What I'm saying is, vote for Prop B, don't vote for Prop B. I think if Prop B passes, we're not going to see much of a change. The APD cannot make arrests right now for nonviolent misdemeanors. Camping is a nonviolent misdemeanor, even if this proposition passes. They may issue more tickets. But that doesn't really do anything. It's not like the people who are in the situation are super concerned about getting those tickets. We're fully aware of that. So I'm not really sure that Prop B is actually going to do anything, because I think we're targeting the wrong problem, in all honesty. So, we'll find out if it passes, but that's my prediction with it.
Cleo?
Hi. So having Prop B, it compels people, obviously, to seek shelter if there is shelter, and that the city should provide some type of housing or safe campgrounds with services provided. But it also forces people to go to court. I'm a former probation officer, so I like to use community measures to try to help people out of their current situation to better choices and to better.
So how does Prop B achieve that, though?
Because
the problem with homelessness is clearly the fact that, this is the problem with capitalism, is that when you have $0, it's very difficult to acquire $1. When you have $1 million, it's very easy to acquire another $1. So it's clear that homeless people are just in a catch-22. They're stuck at the bottom of our society.
Right.
So I don't understand what your plan of just criminalizing these people and just hitting them as willingly fine as possible. How is that easing the problem? I agree that there is a problem, and we all agree that there's a problem with homelessness. Right. But I don't understand how you think the steel toe cap of the government is going to actually resolve this problem. How is that going to increase the well-being and raise them up the socioeconomic ladder?
Right, I get what you're saying. So first of all, like I mentioned before, I'm going to always heed to the experts, and they all say that.
I'm asking you though.
And that's my answer. The camping bans work, and I will absolutely defer to the experts that work in this and say, hey, we need your help. We need to compel people to shelter because of. Well, hold on a second. It's not a cop out.
It is.
Calm down. Okay, I'm answering your question, but it's several parts to it.
You're sidestepping my question. My question is very clear. How does Prop B?
Can you please let me answer, because it's multifaceted. It's complicated. We're talking about the human condition.
I don't think it is very complicated.
No, it is extremely complicated, because in my professional life, this is what we dealt with.
Okay, that's fine.
We're compelling people to seek better. The human is not an easy A plus B equals C. There's a lot of dynamics to this. And obviously, this has everyone's attention. Having this proposition back on and enforceable will have people either get arrested or give them time to clear out from certain places, like in San Antonio, or if you were at the Capitol for the
So you have to have just mass incarceration of them then?
Yes.
But you did say that.
I'm not saying that.
I'm saying that.
I know. I have a huge.
I say lock them
You won't
up.
let me finish.
You just said they will get arrested.
No,
and I have
she
a
didn't
huge-
say
You-
that.
I
She's
didn't say
saying
it.
no.
You didn't let me finish.
She's saying no. I'm
said
saying
You're
yes.
trying to make
Go
me
ahead.
not make my point, but I'm going to
Go
make
ahead.
my point.
Cleo, make your point.
So what I'm saying is, as the state officials, Democrats and Republicans that were there, the state senator and representatives, because there will be a state camping ban, and they also want to know how to roll this out in a humane and a dignified way. There will be given, a time period like, okay, within a month or a couple weeks, we're going to be clearing out this encampment. We're going to find places for you to go. If you turn it down, then we're going to they'll have a campground, or they're going to figure out different places for you to go, alternatives. And if you choose that, then the possibility of arrest is high. However, it is a Class C, and that doesn't mean jail. That means you have to go to court, and you probably will have to
if you don't
deal.
go to court?
You will probably have to deal with a diversionary court or a probation officer or some type of person that's going to help you seek treatment. And if you refuse treatment, what else do you want from us? Do you want us to put a bottle in your mouth and say, please take it?
I think it's
I
better
mean,
to
come
leave
on,
people
think
alone.
about it.
Like I don't think you can force people to take help. Like that's the element of freedom, isn't it? Like you don't have to. You can live in whatever standard of life you want to have.
Great. So stay homeless.
Absolutely.
But just don't bother me while you're doing it.
And I agree.
I mean,
agree.
at
And that's
the end of the day,
I definitely
there's a
agree.
lot of nonsense being talked here about what Prop B does or doesn't do.
Mhm.
The simple fact of the matter is, it is not society's job to make sure you have a house. It's
Agreed.
not society's
Agreed.
job
Agreed
to make
with
sure
that.
you have the life that you want.
Absolutely
It's your
agreed.
job.
Yes.
That's why you're here.
Yes,
That's why you're
absolutely.
not homeless.
And I say that's exactly true. So like I was homeless for a small period of time. Well, not homeless, but you know what I mean. I was in a
And
bad
you
situation.
wanted to fix it.
Yeah, and I wanted to fix it. I agreed.
I can't
But-
force you to want to fix it.
No, absolutely, you can't. But I'm just concerned that I don't know if just mass kind of arresting these people or finding them is going to be an adequate solution.
Well, it
to the
might not
problem.
be. Prop B doesn't solve all the problems, but think about it this way: did Prop B, did the rescinding of the ordinance cause problems that did not previously exist?
I would argue possibly.
Yes, it did.
I argue maybe. I think another big impact of homeless people in Austin is COVID as well. You have to understand that COVID fundamentally has damaged our economy, and people who were on the edge in 2019 were thrown into homelessness into 2020. And I think that is a component of the explosion of the homelessness in Austin that we really should consider. But I still would not agree with just mass arresting these people.
No, I don't think anybody would. Even those who support yes on Prop B, many of us wouldn't.
But in effect, that's what you're doing.
No, you're not. The police have the ability to decide if they're going to arrest. They don't have to arrest.
It's going to put police in a bigger danger than they were before to begin with.
It's ridiculous.
All right. Let me ask you a question. Are you in high school education, right?
Yeah.
Did you graduate college?
No.
You did not graduate college.
No higher education.
How much do you
whatsoever.
make an hour currently right now?
$75 an hour.
$75 an hour. Are you black or are you white?
I would consider myself black.
All right, thank you. You're a black male. You have braids in your hair. You make $75 an hour. You were homeless. You found the need and the drive to actually stop being homeless. You found yourself a job. You don't have a college education, but you found a job making $75 an hour. There is no excuse. You know why? You have the drive, you have the determination to make change in your life. Not everyone has that determination. This is Michael Cargill. You are listening to Come and Talk It.